In the collecting world, especially when it comes to Grails, I think it is important for you to set realistic goals on what your upper limit is going to be.
It doesn't really matter what that plan is, as long as you are able to do it within your financial means.
Yes.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Level Up Podcast. I'm here, as always, with my good friend Cal.
Hello, Murph. It's me, Cal. Rolling into my second podcast recording of the day. I'm feeling hot. I'm warmed up.
It won't be the second best podcast, though, right? Am I going to make you pick favorites here?
I will pick my own podcast over the Howling Salt Mine podcast. Love you guys, Howling Salt Mine, but I like my podcast better. Sorry.
So if you're ever at all interested in Magic the Gathering stuff and listening to Cal on a Magic the Gathering podcast, listen to that on the Howling Salt Mine podcast. If it's already out, awesome. If not, I'm sure that'll be out soon. Yeah. But today we are not here to talk about Magic the Gathering.
Magic the Gathering is banned on this podcast.
We are here to talk about video games. And what specifically about video games are we talking about today, Cal?
Today we are talking about our video game collecting holy grails, but the ones we already own. Yes, Murph and I are advanced enough collectors such that we at least own some of our grails already. Obviously not some of them. There's always something to reach for, maybe. But these are some of the things that, like, when I started collecting, I said, oh, I'll never own that. And here I am, owning it. So that's what we're talking about today.
We're going to be talking about some, like, very expensive, very pricey stuff today. And we just want to set the bar of, we want to be clear that we are not just trying to flaunt these in front of other people. Look at what we have. You don't have this, ha, ha, ha. It's more of a, let's look at the upper limits of the Holy Grails that we have already gotten, what we liked about them, our journey to get there, and then kind of reflect on that a little bit.
I'm in. Murph?
He's in.
Why don't you go ahead and start us off? What is your first grail that you want to talk about today?
So the first grail that I got, at least what I would consider a grail, and probably the first time that I spent more than $100 on a game, was the probably biggest and most sought after game on the Sega Saturn, because I'm a very big Sega Saturn guy. I love the console. I've had one since I was about 13 or something like that. So obviously I've been playing Saturn games for a long time and have been made aware of this game for quite some time. What game is it that I'm alluding to? That game is, of course, Panzer Dragoon Saga. So this is the rarest game that exists on the Saturn. It was made in 1998, the very tail end of the Saturn's lifespan, at least here in North America.
And as we discussed on the last channel, the Saturn also was a flop console itself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this was very late in the lifespan of a console that flopped. It was a franchise that was, like, semi-popular. It's part of the Panzer Dragoon franchise, which is like a rail shooter. Are you at all familiar with this franchise, Cal?
I am not. On a Sega console? Arcade adjacent? Please.
Oh, that's true. We talked about on the Dreamcast episode how you were just not familiar with Sega consoles past the Genesis.
Correct.
And also that you don't own an original Xbox. And those are the only things that play Panzer Dragoon games.
I do have an original Xbox, so I guess I could get Panzer Dragoon for my original Xbox, yeah.
I take it back. I thought you said you didn't have one.
I do have one.
Excellent. So all the games that exist in the Panzer Dragoon franchise are Panzer Dragoon 1, as a launch title for the Saturn, Panzer Dragoon 2, which came out about a year later. Those are both rail shooters. This game, Panzer Dragoon Saga, which came out 2 years after the second game. And then it was on a little bit of a hiatus until 2003 when Panzer Dragoon Orta came out for the original Xbox. And then the series has just been kind of dead and dormant ever since. We've gotten a single remake of the first game. So that's nice. That's pretty sick. But by and large, the franchise is pretty dead because it's always been pretty niche. So the whole point of the franchise is that it's set in this post-apocalyptic world where there's, like, obviously a civilization that existed before this one, and it was very advanced, and everybody's just kind of scavengers scrapping together any kind of pieces of the previous generations that they can put together and actually find stuff that's useful. So it feels a little bit old-timey, a little bit futuristic, and it's all slapped together. Very cool storytelling mechanism. Very cool world.
Yeah, it sounds very neat.
Yeah, and you're just on a dragon. That's kind of... you fly on a dragon. That's
I guess
about
that's
all there's
in the
to
name.
it.
Yeah.
So if you like... Do you like Star Fox 64 at all?
I do.
Or rail shooters in general?
Yeah, those that I've played, it is not a genre that I've gotten to interact with very much. I have enjoyed what I've played of Star Fox 64. I don't own it myself, but I've played it several times before. That's fun. You know,
it's very
I have
arcadey.
House of the Walking Dead, little House of the Walking Dead action.
House of the Dead, there we go.
Yeah.
That's
Walking
more
Dead,
like
House of the Dead.
yeah.
I guess that's not quite an on-rail shooter. It's a little bit different. You can't control your character, but...
Yeah, I'd consider that more a light gun game. Yeah. So, it's adjacent, but I don't think quite the same type of thing. So, yeah, first 2 games and the 4th game, those are all rail shooters. Excellent games. If you ever have a Saturn or Xbox, I'd definitely encourage you to try them out. But we're not talking about those today. We are talking about Panzer Dragoon Saga. So this one...
Wait, I remembered... My favorite rail shooter. It's Pokemon Snap.
Pokemon Snap is basically a rail shooter. That's very true.
Yeah.
Pokemon It's like Snap. A very weird rail shooter kind of thing, but yeah.
Very non-violent rail shooter, but you are quite literally shooting on a rail.
Yeah. It's super sick. I do love that game. I picked it up pretty darn recently within the past few months and played it for the first time. This game is neat.
It's very fun, very cute. It's kind of a cult classic for a reason, I would say.
Yeah. So, Panzer Dragoon Saga is an RPG, a full-fledged RPG. So, imagine taking a rail shooter with a cool world and turning that into a full RPG. Okay. I mean, it fleshes out the world, which is already really sweet.
If there's already a cool world and world building to work with, you're halfway there. Yeah. In a lot of ways.
And the mechanics are really cool because the battle system... You're riding on the dragon, and so your positioning matters where you are relative to your enemy. So you can it takes a certain amount of time for you to move around the enemy, and then you have your action gauges that you can use magic, you can use your laser weapon, you can use the gun that you're physically holding in your rider's hand. So it's very different compared to most RPG mechanics that I've run into. To be fair, I'm not a huge RPG guy.
Not a huge RPG head.
Yeah, I do like them quite a bit, but they always take quite a lot of time, oftentimes, and so I'm always a little bit hesitant to get into new RPGs. But this one really caught my eye because I loved the world of Panzer Dragoon, and it's not that long of an RPG. Mm-hmm. The first time I played it, it clocked in at about a little over 20 hours.
Oh, it's not bad at all. That's a reasonable game length.
Yeah, it's very short, and I did a lot of exploring, seeing all the side content and everything. So there's not actually a ton to this game compared to a lot of other RPGs. Now, some people might see that as a negative, but personally, I see that as a huge positive, which means I can actually play this game, spend a bunch of time in it, and get my fill without feeling like I missed a bunch of stuff. So this game was conceived of at Sega to be basically the Final Fantasy VII killer. Sega thought, which was a pretty fair thought at the time, that if they were to make a RPG that was better than Final Fantasy VII,
it would simply perform better.
Yeah, which was one of the biggest games just in general on the PlayStation 1.
Yeah.
Of that entire generation. That's true. That if they could make an RPG better than that, then that would help the Saturn with sales, because the Saturn was not doing well in sales as of 96. So they set a team to work on this. They sent half of the team to work on Panzer Dragoon 2. They sent half of it to work on this RPG. Took them a little over 2 years in order to make. Eventually came out in 1998. It's a bizarre release because Sega of America had basically completely given up on the Saturn. They were like, we're going to save all of our money and put literally everything we've got into the Dreamcast.
Into the Dreamcast, yeah.
So even though the Dreamcast didn't come out until late 99, the Saturn had a grand total of 8, counts them 8 releases on the Saturn in 98, which is really crazy. Mm-hmm. Like, that is not a lot of games.
No.
Like, that is just games released, period. Doesn't matter who they were by. Doesn't matter who developed. Doesn't matter who published them. 8 games came out in North America for the Saturn. And this was one of them. Now, basically all of those games that came out were also quite good and end up being quite expensive nowadays as well. Like, I know Burning Rangers is one of them.
Haven't heard of that one. Yeah, House of the Dead, but on the Saturn.
Yeah, House of the Dead on the Saturn came out then. Magic Knight Rayearth came out. Shining Force 3 came out. So there were like a bunch of heavy hitter bangers that came out, which is why they did choose to release them. But they released them in very small quantities and kind of picked the best of the best games to be released, to be like, hey, we still accept that there are fans of the Saturn. They can have these good quality games and they'll hopefully review well, which will keep the Sega brands alive and well. So yeah, they released it and made about 20,000 copies of this for the North American market. The European market is even more insane because they made about 1,000 of these.
Oh.
Yeah, which is
not
really
great.
low.
What is like? What is even the point? What are we doing here? Were they like contractually obligated to release the game? That's like the MVP release, like minimal viable product release. Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, so they did an entire translation of the game into English. Sega USA, I believe, did that, and then I believe Europe just took that translation and ran with it. So another crazy thing about this game is it is fully voice acted.
Okay.
From a 90s RPG from 98, before even like the PS2 era.
Holy moly.
It's fully voiced. It's insane.
Yeah, that is insane.
The people that made this game were just like, we have these big, great ideas and we're going to make it happen, regardless of whether they're actually good ideas.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah.
So, again, that's Sega for you.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it came out at over 4 discs. Mm-hmm. Kind of like the Final Fantasy. I think 7 only had 3 discs, but I think 8 and 9 had 4 discs. So very similar to that. A lot of space was reserved for the voice acting.
Oh yeah, big audio files.
Big audio files. They had a bunch of FMVs in the game as well. So like you swap over to disc 2 after the first like 3 hours of play.
Ugh.
Because there's
like so many FMVs on disc 1.
Yeah, there's so many FMVs, so much dialogue that exists on disc 1 with just the intro cutscenes and all that.
And these were just CD-ROMs too, so like holding up like max 900 megabytes, right?
Yeah.
Brutal.
Yeah, I think they were about 700-ish.
Yep.
So, yeah. All of this came out, and it reviewed very, very well. Everyone that played it basically said that they really, really liked the game. But, again, the Saturn was basically dead, so nobody bought it.
Yeah, no one cared, unfortunately.
Yeah. So,
bad timing.
Fast forward to the present day. This game is looked back pretty fondly by those who have played it. It's kind of the holy grail for all Saturn collectors because it's the creme de la creme, the top of the food chain as far as expensive Saturn games go. And Saturn games can get expensive. Like the Burning Rangers, Magic Knight Rayearth, those ones that I also mentioned that were released late in the life cycle are still around like $500-$600 games. Mm-hmm. If I remember correctly, the prices might have fluctuated since I actually looked into them. Because I looked into them around the same time that I got this. I'm like, okay, what is out there? Like, what is the best of the Saturn? So I picked this one up disc only. So what I have right here is actually a reproduction case.
Oh, okay.
Because complete, this game goes for over $1,000. So disc only, I picked it up for around $500 at the time. And so it comes in, let me see if I can open this up. It comes in like these discs, like these disc slabs, which is like super bizarre because most Saturn games didn't have multiple discs. And so they just had like these little sleeves for these 4 discs and like slapped them in there. And this is how it came. Like this is an actual reproduction of how it came. So one of the reasons why this is more expensive than the others, aside from the fact that it was probably the best reviewing one and is one of the most highly desirable games as far as people want to play it the most, is the fact that it's in this stupid Sega Saturn case, which break easily, and there's 4 discs that are just kind of loosely put in there.
Yeah, easy to lose.
Yeah.
If you even have a case that isn't broken.
Exactly. So it's just not that common to find all 4 discs of this game, first of all, but even less common to find all 4 discs in the original case, much less in good condition.
Yep.
So that's one of the reasons why this game is so expensive. So this one, for me, this was around, like, this was a COVID purchase where I was looking around like, okay, what stuff exists out there on the Saturn that I would possibly want? And so I saw Panzer Dragoon Saga. I was like, oh, this seems like the best game ever. I was looking for good Saturn games that I could actually sink my teeth into, because a lot of the Saturn library is like very arcadey. There's lots of arcade games, like arcade ports from stuff like Daytona USA, things like that, lots of fighting games. So I wanted something that I could just like really sink my teeth into. And this one felt like it fit the bill the best. And so I just kind of looked out for it. And eventually I was able to find a listing for under $500 for all 4 discs loose. And I was like, all right, I'm going to jump on that. It's all 4 discs. I'll figure out how to get a case for it later, but I at least want to play this game. Because one thing that sucks about the Saturn is it's very hard to emulate. Now, granted, Saturn emulation has actually come a pretty long ways within the past couple of years. But even so, Saturn emulation kind of
stinks.
It doesn't stink. It's just not 100% perfect. So, yeah, you can play it on an emulator, but it's not going to be the best experience ever. So, this was one that I really wanted to get to be able to play on original hardware if I could. And so I did. I picked it up. I played through it. I really enjoyed my time with it. It was basically all that I wanted out of the game. It was a Saturn game that I could sink my teeth into. I explored a ton of areas in it, and it is really a shame that more people are not able to play this game. Like, if they were able to release it tomorrow, just re-release it on the Nintendo eShop or something like that, and just do an emulated version of it, that would be great. Because I would love to be able to share this experience with more people. Because, yeah, I've had this experience and I really like it. Mm-hmm. But it's very hard for me to go through and be like, hey, you should also play this. Like, I can't really recommend this game to other people because of how expensive it is.
And it is kind of so sad that, like, probably just because it was, like, such a flop or whatever, even though it has become more popular in hindsight, they just, it's just never actually... They haven't really had an incentive to put it onto the Nintendo Switch or whatever,
Yeah.
Like port it over there.
The biggest problem is they've lost the source code.
Oh, okay. Yep.
So that causes a lot of problems. And like I said, Saturn emulation, not the greatest. So if Saturn emulation can get to like near 1-to-1, 100% compatibility perfection, then we might be able to see like an official Saturn emulator come out.
Okay. Yep.
And maybe some games will be put on there. I don't know. But that to me seems like the most feasible way to be able to get people to play this game. But as it is, it's not great.
That makes sense.
The one thing that I will say, though, is that a lot of people will look at expensive games. Like, what is the most expensive game for the GameCube, for example?
Oh, man. That's a great question.
Is it still Pokemon Box?
Oh, yeah. It's almost certain. If we can call Pokemon Box a game, Pokemon Box complete, like not sealed or whatever, but complete with the memory card and stuff, does go for over $1,000.
Yeah. So for a lot of people in the GameCube collecting community, that is their grail. That is the most expensive game that they can possibly get. The thing that I don't really care for about that is, yes, it's expensive, but what the heck are you going to do with it?
Yep.
Like,
yeah, it doesn't do anything.
It is very fun to collect expensive things and say, hey, look at this. This is... Like, I spent a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in order to be able to afford this.
Yep.
And now it's on my shelf, and I can show it to other people, and I can tell all of you out there about it. But if I can't sit down and play it, like, what was the point?
Yeah, what are we doing here?
What are we doing here?
The most expensive, like, game for the GameCube is Disney Sports Basketball, which does also go complete for, like, over $1,000.
I mean, the same
Which
logic
is crazy.
still applies.
Yes,
right?
exactly. It's not...
Because no one's itching to actually physically play this game.
No.
They only want it because it is rare.
Yeah, exactly.
And that can definitely speak to a certain type of collector, like collecting things just for the sake of having these expensive things on your shelf and trying to get, say, a complete GameCube collection.
Yep.
Like, is that something that you would ever want to go for, Cal?
The complete NA collection is like the upper limit of my collecting. Like, I do, if I see like a junk GameCube game that I don't own for cheap, I buy it. I'm just like, cool. But and it would be nice to do. Like, that's something I have to figure out. I'm like, oh yeah, it'd be cool to have a complete North American collection, but like eventually that's just something you have to aim for, and it is over 500 games, and that's a lot of space. Like, there's a lot of space taken up behind me by my current GameCube games, and I don't even have 100 yet. So
yeah, and it'll be more than 5 times as much. Yeah,
exactly. And I own most of the like $250 games. I don't own any of the $500 games. I don't own any of the $800 games. I don't own any of the $1,000 games. So it's a long road, but I could talk about that a little bit later.
Absolutely. Yeah, but it is totally valid to like take that route when it comes to collecting of I'm just going to collect everything for the system, or I'm just going to try to collect the most expensive stuff for this system. But that's not really how I like to do things, personally.
Mm-hmm. Same. Big time same, Murph. I say, as I'm currently doing that. But you know what? Hey.
Yeah, I'm like scrolling down and looking at the other things we're going to talk about, and I'm like, I say this now, but at the same time,
yep.
Are we just dumb?
Are we just silly, dumb, stupid?
Yeah, a little bit.
I guess I can talk about my first Grail, Murph.
Go for it.
My first Grail, predictably, very GameCube focused. Woo. Little show and tell for the crowd here. It's actually the Grail itself. Let's get Murph's in the reflection. Let's get Murph in the reflection off this thing. This is a little bit of a 3-piece, actually. It's a bit of a nearly complete Panasonic Q. I'm missing the box, and I don't have the TV remote. Why would a GameCube have a TV remote, you ask? Because this is not just a Nintendo GameCube. The Panasonic Q is a very chromey, chrome front, stainless steel. Rest of the body, it's metal. It is a stainless steel and like chrome front, very strange looking GameCube. I kind of wanted to run an extension cord over to my desk and plug it in because it has this top screen up here which lights up really bright blue. The controller ports have blue LEDs that light up around them. It looks real fun. But this is a GameCube that is also a CD and DVD player.
So it has like a full-size disc tray that you can put CDs.
Yes, it has
DVDs
a full-size disc tray that also has a little divot in it for mini DVDs, much the same as like a bunch of like computer, like disc trays did for a certain period of time.
Yeah, I was gonna say, to be fair, like I'm pretty sure our DVD player,
kid
also had like the little
theoretically mini DVD was an accessible format that surely someone would need to use, right?
And then it never was.
Yep, exactly. And so this was the Panasonic Q came to be for a really interesting reason. It was pretty much like Nintendo made a strategic partnership deal with Panasonic, which had relatively recently flubbed out of the console market after failing with the 3DO.
That was Panasonic.
That was Panasonic. I guess it wasn't even like that recent, right? But they did a strategic partnership. Panasonic did most, if not all, of the developmental work on the optical drive that is in the normal GameCube. And in return, Panasonic could like manufacture a GameCube if they wanted to. And so this was what Panasonic decided to do. It kind of makes sense. They saw that the PlayStation 2 was having success as a DVD player. And they said, oh, well, what if we just made the GameCube a DVD player? Kind of makes sense. There was some problems. It broke very easily. They break very easily now, but they also broke fairly commonly at the time. The disc tray and the gears that drive the disc tray are made out of very suspicious plastic that will break at the drop of a hat. And it was also pretty expensive at the time. It was the original MSRP was $320, worth like, you know, equivalent of yen at the time, which with inflation would now be $580. That's you know, that's a good chunk of change. We were talking about exactly. We were talking about how the GameCube was like the equivalent of $200, PlayStation 2 equivalent of $300. This is nearly $600, right? Pricey.
Well, to be fair, it was still $200 back then, or $300 back then. So this is $320 back then. But even so, it is more expensive
than anything else.
PlayStation 2.
Yes, exactly.
So why would you get this unless you really wanted an all-in-one? I guess.
And it's like, it is, you know, it is pretty big and bulky. It is a weird form factor. It's like weirdly long.
Yeah, where are you going to put that?
It's weirdly bulky, and it's loud. It's not quiet either. It's pretty loud when it's on in comparison to most other game consoles, especially at the time.
Yeah, the dimensions kind of remind me of like a PVM, like legitimately.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
of like it's very industrial design. Yeah, and it's just kind of like big and square, rectangle-ish, and it's very cool.
Very good shout out, I must admit.
But
it does look very sick. That's the coolest part about it, really.
Oh, definitely. With the blue LEDs and everything when it's on. Oh.
Yep. But they also, like, if you open this thing up, they also just did, like, the most phone-it-in job imaginable. It's literally just, like, a weird sideboard, which I guess would probably be the motherboard, I guess, for, like, handling where all the video out goes and stuff. And there's basically a GameCube motherboard plugged into the bottom of that has a cable coming down from the DVD player, which is plugged into the, like, the middle level here. Which, yeah, exactly.
Sure.
So, like, so there's, like, a DVD player pretty much, and then there's, like, an extra, like, out cable that comes down and plugs into the disk drive slot of the GameCube motherboard. And then there's a third other whole board up here that runs like the top row of buttons and the display screen. And there's also some little boards up front to run. You know, you have to have all the boards up front to like run the controller ports, and also these buttons that they put along the side. So this thing, if you open this up, it is real hard to work on. It's real hard to work on these.
Yeah, this sounds like a mess. This feels like something that like I would put together.
Correct.
Of just like throwing something together, put a decent case around it, and call it a day.
Yep.
Not saying that I'm all that good at like computer stuff to begin with, but much less a multi-million, possibly billion-dollar electronics corporation like Panasonic.
Exactly. So this did not do well. There's no like exact sales numbers, but like the official sales number is under 100,000 units, which in the grand scheme of like consoles is not all that many at all. It came in a big old box with 2 accessories, a TV remote for it, like kind of a universal remote that was themed the same, you know, and it could like swap to the GameCube. Cool. And it also came with, I think, outside of people who are like freaks and want to spend a lot of money on owning the actual Panasonic's Q itself, it came with the very popular Panasonic controller, which is just slate gray and says Panasonic instead of saying like Nintendo GameCube or whatever these normally say on them, fake GameCube fan, it says Panasonic SHTGC10.
That's
for some reason.
Yeah, it's very strange because it feels like Panasonic, especially with the design of the cube itself, was going for something very industrial.
Yeah, and
then you look at the controller
vibe, I guess,
and it really doesn't. Like the game controller does not feel industrial.
No, except for like the weird serial code they put on it for some reason.
It's like they tried, but like
exactly.
You got to do more than that to the GameCube controller. Not saying that I would even want that.
No,
because the GameCube controller is very good.
Yes,
but. Yeah, question for you.
Yes, answer.
Would you be able to get one of these controllers separately, or did these only come with the cube themselves?
They only came with the cubes themselves, which is part of why like this Panasonic controller is also like quite rare in demand on its own. It's like the Panasonic controller is also just like a grail for some people who like people who like to play Melee, and some of the swag you can have for Melee is having a cool GameCube controller. You know, some people like to have the Panasonic controller because it's just, I mean, it's weird. Look at it.
Imagine being like, the only way I can wave shine is by using a Panasonic GameCube controller.
Exactly.
And like getting that modded with the notches. Ooh.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, hey, I'd do it.
if you can do that, by all means, I suppose.
Yeah. No. So yeah, it came with the controller and the TV remote in the box. What it did not come with the box is the other accessory that was available for the Panasonic Q, which is also, you may have noticed, is on the bottom of my Panasonic Q. I also have the Panasonic Q Game Boy Advance player, which for the real freaks is the actual Grail piece here. We all know how unpopular in the grand scheme of things. Well, we may not. The great Game Boy Advance player was a great idea for the GameCube. It was not, in the grand scheme of things, all that popular. Pretty popular, not that popular. But due to the unique, for whatever reason, they decided to make one for the Q, and due to the unique both form factor of the Q, you know, it's real long and also like wider than a normal GameCube, due to the fact that you can't actually see it, but this has like long feet on it. It like stands up. It's like pretty much always this tall, but it.
So it is like a TV where it's like, it's like, it has like little,
it has little feet on it. So it has foot wells for the feet to rest in, and the ports are also like in a different location. So it had to have its own Game Boy Advance player made. And of course it is like the exact same plastic gray as the Panasonic Q. This is the real Grail here for GameCube collectors, the Game Boy Advance. I also do have that. So I'm gonna jump right in, and I'm gonna say, let's talk about the price of this stuff, as one does with Grails. The expensive thing here is the Game Boy Advance player. If you wanted to go and buy a Game Boy Advance player for the Panasonic Q, like right now, without deal hunting and stuff, it would cost you like $1,100 to $1,300.
Wow,
Unboxed.
just for that itself?
Yes, just for the Game Boy Advance player alone. And there are boxed ones out there, which I would imagine would go for like 15 to 2. And then the Q itself, in the same vein, if you wanted to go on eBay and buy a perfectly operational one right now, it would cost you like $900. Or if you're willing to get it on eBay, like from Japan, it would be like maybe $700. But why is that so expensive? The controllers are also like, I don't know. You can usually get them with the controller will also cost you like $100+. All elements here are obviously very expensive. Why? It's rare. I think like of all of the GameCubes that I have, this is the one that most often gets from like people who aren't into retro games, or maybe are into retro games, but not specifically the GameCube. This is like obviously the cool and unique one, right?
Yeah, if you're not familiar with it, you look at that and think, huh, what in the world is that?
Yeah, exactly. It's like funky, it's chromy, it's a GameCube, but it's also a DVD player. Like, you know, of all the different GameCubes I have back behind me, it's the only one that has a different function entirely. It can play my CDs.
Now, is it Japanese region locked?
For the DVDs, yes, it is Japanese region locked to DVDs. That is, if you're willing to open it up, that can be pretty easy to fix, and it is also open to like some vulnerabilities around like put in a specific DVD and then take out the open up the disk drive at the right time and then put in a US DVD type of stuff. So there's ways to get around it, and there are ways to like swap it. The region lock, but yes, it is DVD region locked, and it is also GameCube region locked as well.
Okay. But yeah, like you were saying, that this is something that people just aren't super aware of, and it's very cool in that it has extra function.
Correct.
But how often are you actually going to use that extra functionality with the DVD player? One, the region lock makes that pretty darn impossible. Correct. But even so, would you want to be putting hours on your Panasonic Q laser?
Yeah, exactly.
To watch Bad Boys 2?
Yeah.
Or whatever.
I know. I have kind of, since I have like the big CRT setup and stuff, I have kind of thought about like, I have like a GameCube guy in Columbus who I pay to do the annoying stuff that I don't want to deal with. Like he has modded my queue for me because I was not going to deal with that. And if like I have thought about just like paying him a little bit to like get rid of the region lock because he knows how to do that for the DVD and like, you know, throw it into the setup, hook it up to the TV.
You could also just get a regular DVD player,
but this is so
PS2 in.
No, this is so much more cool, Murph. I could use a PS2
is.
or anyways.
Yeah, I don't have a single DVD player in my house except for a Panasonic Q. Like, yes, what a flex.
Exactly. They break at the drop of the hat. I kind of already mentioned this, especially in transit. Like, if you buy a working Panasonic Q from Japan and get it shipped here, the rails or the gears will be broken when it gets here. And that is a really big problem with kind of the supply of the system. Is like, you can go on eBay and you do see a lot of systems like this that are like broken for parts and they'll be listed for like $400 to $600. What you usually don't know is, and I mean, you can talk to sellers and stuff, they can be broken, like the rails or the gears can be broken, which means the disk drive, which like, you know, comes in and out like many a DVD player. The rails or gears could be broken. The rails are extremely easy to replace. You can readily buy 3D printed replacements online. The gears are annoying to replace. Both of them are, like I already talked about, a huge pain in the butt to access. So like a lot of the supply for this console that exists within America has a non-operational disk tray, and it could be really easy or really hard to replace the parts that are broken inside, or it could just be more generically broken and, you know. And that's part of it too. Like they have to get here from Japan, and unlike a lot of other stuff that you could import from Japan, like even some of the Japanese exclusive GameCubes, a GameCube is pretty small compared to many non-dinky items and is pretty light. This is not small, and this is hefty. Like I got mine shipped here from Japan. I'll tell the story of how I got it here in a second. It was not cheap to get it over here. It was not at all.
Yeah. Did you get all of the stuff from the Panasonic Q all at once? Like, did you get the controller and the Game Boy player?
Yeah, here's the story of how I got this. I got real lucky. That's what it was. I got super, super, super lucky. I was just trolling on, you know, looking through GameCube stuff. I was looking for a Spice Orange. I was looking for a really good deal on a Spice Orange GameCube. Japan exclusive color on Yahoo Auctions, which is basically eBay, but in Japan. They use Yahoo Auctions. Extremely popular over there. And I was, you know, looking around, and then I saw a listing for a Panasonic Q GameCube. And I was like, oh, that's neat. Oh, that doesn't look too pricey right now. That'd be kind of fun to contend for. And it also had some controllers that like some were listed as working and some as not. One of which was the emerald blue controller. I didn't have that yet. You can, if you're watching, you can see it behind me up above my head, the emerald blue one. It's a cool color. Spoiler, I won the lot. Oh, brother.
Dang, that's crazy.
And I looked at it and it was like broken for parts, and I was like, okay, that means the rails or gears are probably broken, but like I have like Japanese region lock GameCubes that I just can't use, that I'm not going to mod anyway. It'd be cool to just have a Panasonic Q even if it's broken, and that price seems pretty reasonable. And so I clicked into the listings and I like clicked onto the second photo, and on the second photo the Panasonic Q had a Game Boy Advance player on the bottom of it, and I was like, ooh, this is way too cheap. This is way too cheap.
Now, was it priced accordingly to like a regular Q? Was it a price more like a 4 parts are not working Q?
It was priced for like, I don't know, in between, nowhere near what a 4 parts not working Q would be in the US. Qs are cheaper in Japan than they are in the US for sure.
Because you have to pay for the shipping in order to get it over here.
You have to pay for the shipping to get it over here. It takes time, you know. You have to, it's actually pretty hard to ship stuff out of Japan unless you're willing to use a shipping service, you know, all that kind of stuff, which also costs additional money. But anyways, it was like, I don't even remember I think at the time, the bid price was like $100. And I was like, huh. And so I sat there and I thought about it for a bit. And I was like, well, I do have money. I have money I can spend. And so I made an account for Yahoo Auctions, which I also had to use like some intermediary service for, because like I think it's technically against the rules to use Yahoo Auctions outside of Japan, or there's some like blanket service that just handles all the conversion from USD to yen and translates everything into English and, makes an all Japanese site that operates in yen usable to the dumbass American that I am. And I just was like, I will put in a bid for $600. My max bid is $600. I would, it's a lot of money, but if I got a Q and a Game Boy Advance player for $600, I am over the moon about that.
Even if the Q is not working at that point.
Exactly.
Like, you're still very happy about that.
Yep. I ended up getting into like a small bidding war with someone. I think my final price was like in the mid 600s. And then also by the time that I paid the fees on Yahoo Auctions and got it shipped to the shipping service, and the shipping service charged me, and it got shipped here via DHL, and it showed up here.
Good old DHL.
Yep, exactly. A DHL package showed up. Cool. My Alibaba Express is here. Order is here. It ended up costing me like a little over $700 total, but I was amazed that I won that auction because like it kind of just looks like it slipped people by that it had the Game Boy Advance player on the bottom, because like Game Boy Advance player auctions on Yahoo Auctions can go for more than that. So
yeah, you said that you didn't see it on there until you clicked on it and saw the second picture.
The main picture was like a top-down photo of like some GameCube controllers and also the Panasonic Q, which was like sitting like this.
Oh.
Was like the first picture. Like, so it was like sitting on the thing and they did it top down. And then the second picture was the Panasonic Q like laying on its back. And then you could see the Game Boy Advance player. And part of me in my brain, I was like, does this come with the Game Boy Advance player? Is this a mistake? And so then the actual rationale was like, okay, I am paying a little bit extra for this than I would for a 4 parts in the US. And you know what? I'll own a Panasonic Q. I'll get an emerald blue controller out of it, which is like a $70 controller. Cool to have. And if it comes with the Panasonic Q, if it comes with the Game Boy Advance player, I've made out like a bandit. And I unwrapped it from a bunch of Japanese newspaper inside of this DHL box. And lo and behold, there with a working emerald blue GameCube controller, a working black GameCube controller, 2 broken black GameCube controllers, there was a Panasonic Q with busted rails and a Game Boy Advance player on the bottom, baby.
That is so sick. Yeah. That's way better stories than my Grails. Mine are like, it was like mildly underneath the going price, and so I pulled the trigger.
Yeah, so I a little overpaid for a broken Panasonic Q and got a $1,000 plus accessory out of the deal.
So does it work now?
It does. It does work now. It is still region locked. I didn't get it unregion locked, but it is Pico boot modded. So it can run Swiss, and I can run games off of an SD card and all that kind of stuff, which I do also kind of just prefer because I can kind of just not fiddle around with all of my discs. It's easy. Yeah, it's easy. I don't have to bother with the, relatively fragile rails. Like, the rails were broken. The gears might break any day. Who knows how good the optical drive even is, so I'll just use my Pico boot. And the invention of the Pico boot was awesome because it's the first mod chip that is easily installable on the Panasonic Q. So the more you know. So that's my first Grail. So
the funniest part about this story is that I didn't really know you at the time. But I knew...
it was like when we were, Twitter mutuals aware that we both like video games.
Yeah. So I knew of you, and you had posted, like, somebody stopped me from getting this Panasonic Q or something like that. Where you're like, oh, I really want to get this Panasonic Q. And so I said, somewhat jokingly, but also I'd been looking at this for a long time. I said, hey, if you get a Panasonic Q, I'll get a N64 disk drive. Because they're both kind of like in the vein of weird Japanese-only Nintendo console stuff. And so I said that jokingly, but I was like, well, if he ever goes through with this, like, sure, whatever, I'll pull the trigger.
Whatever.
I've wanted one of these for a while.
Yep.
And so, but I was like, yeah, there's no way he's going to do it. Like, no way. Panasonic Qs, those are ridiculously expensive.
Those are very pricey.
What is he going to do? Actually buy one? And then you did.
Yeah, and then I did.
And then I was like,
called your bluff. Yep.
I mean, I said that I was going to get one if you got a Panasonic Q. And that could just be a joke and leave it at that. Haha.
Yep.
But also, I've wanted one of these things for years. And so, when you got your Panasonic Q, I finally pulled the trigger on a Nintendo 64 disk drive.
Woo woo!
Yeah! So this is my other grail. More so like as far as the console end of things, this is more my grail. I don't usually mess with like special edition versions of consoles or anything like that. Just not really.
One of us, I guess.
I know. I'm just like, I have a silver GameCube and a black GameCube.
It's like even I'm looking over here, and my Nintendo 64, a console I don't even like that much, is ice blue, and
perfect. Ice awesome. Blue is my favorite N64 color.
It's awesome.
It's
and
beautiful.
My Xbox, which I do own, is the Halo green transparent edition. So I'm unfortunately all about those special editions.
Yeah, I like the regular base stuff.
Yep.
You put it in the living room. People know exactly what it is when they come over, and they say, "Oh, that's cool." I guess the closest thing I have to a special edition is I have a jungle green N64, but that was like the most common.
Another excellent color, in my opinion.
That was the most common of the translucent N64 colors. So it's still getting up there in price. I think it's past like 150 or something for one of those now.
All the transparent ones got pretty pricey.
Yeah, but I don't have anything like the Pikachu N64, which is cool, but not something that I'm really looking to add to my collection.
I sold a Pikachu N64 to get the ice blue one.
Honestly, that's fair. I personally like the ice blue one better than the Pikachu one. The Pikachu one is very cute really awesome.
I like the concept of the Pikachu one a lot.
Yeah, where like the foot is the reset button and the little Pokeball is the power on thing. Oh, it's so cute. But at the same time, I like my stuff to be pretty darn stock, all things considered. I'll mod stuff from time to time, and I always feel bad like modding something that's like a special edition or something like that. So anyway, all that to say, I got a Nintendo 64 disc drive. I got one from, I think it was just eBay, a Japanese seller on eBay. It was about what retail price was for one of those things. I was also looking at a listing of the N64 disc drive plus every single game except for, I think it didn't have Doshin 2. Mm-hmm. The Tinkle Toddler Liberation Front is what it's called. Anyway, Japanese games are weird sometimes. But I was looking at one of those, and that was going for around $2,000, but it also said or best offer. I'm like, if I can get this person down to around $1,800, like, I will pull the trigger on this. Like, because this has been something that I've just been kind of sitting on. Like, the money was burned a hole in my pocket. I'm like, I'm going to use this for something gaming related. I just don't know what. Mm-hmm. And so that was kind of what I was looking for, but we couldn't come to an agreement as far as price and everything. So I settled for just a single, bare bones by itself N64 disc drive.
Yep.
These are still quite expensive. I got mine for around retail, which was about $1,200 at the time. And they're still around there, honestly. They haven't really fluctuated much. Sometimes they're a little below, sometimes they're a little above. So that's still about what market price is for these things. So I guess a little bit history about this. I was
going to say, what is the 64
What is
DD?
this thing? So this is an accessory that goes on the bottom of your Nintendo 64. If you ever take your N64, flip it over, there's a little port at the bottom that you can plug stuff into. And by stuff, I mean literally only this, the Nintendo 64 disc drive. What it does is it uses, instead of cartridges, it uses floppy disks as its medium of choice. Because Nintendo kind of shot themselves in the foot a little bit by using cartridges because cartridges could at maximum with the biggest size cartridge, take 64 megabytes worth of storage compared to the CD's 700 or so. So to combat that, they were like, well, what if we did something that's like kind of a CD add-on? But instead of CDs, they went with magnetic floppy disks. So they're these little plastic things with the disks inside. If you were at all alive during the 90s, this will look quite familiar to you. If you were born in probably the year around 2000 or after, you'll probably be like, what the heck is this? It's a save icon. That's what it is. Or just a really big SD card, but it's a literal magnetic disk inside of this instead of solid state memory. So these things are really cool because you can rewrite stuff to the disks. So a lot of games took advantage of that, that you could just like save directly to the disk. So like the one that I was holding up was the F-Zero X expansion kit. It has a track editor. So you can edit the tracks. It has a custom car editor, and you can just save them straight to the disk.
That's pretty sick.
Which is pretty nice. So super cool, super neat. Biggest problem with it, though, is that it sucks. It flopped hard. So this was something that Nintendo was actually teasing for quite some time. Ever since like the initial announcement of the N64, which is a really bizarre thing to do. Like, who says, hey, here's our new console, and also here's this add-on that's going to come out for the console that will add disk support? Maybe it was just to, like, appease people to say, hey, if you're worried about the storage limits of our system, don't worry, we have something coming that will help with that. But there were, like, a lot of games that were legitimately planned for the 64 disk drive. It ended up finally coming out in 1999, only in Japan. Never came out in the United States. But a lot of games up to that point were plans to come out for this thing. So probably the most famous ones are, have you ever heard of a little game called Ocarina of Time?
No.
No? Never?
No. Never heard of it.
Cal's an N64 hater, or a Zelda hater. I don't know. Which are you? A little bit of both?
I'm an old games hater. Look it up.
Only modern games. GameCube and forward, everything before that is just terrible.
Yep. What's an N64? Never heard of her.
Exactly. So that was originally going to be on the disk drive before eventually the disk drive was just taking forever to develop. So they moved it over to cartridge and it came out on cartridge. That happened with a few games. Or there were a few games that were planned for this disk drive that just got canned or canceled at the last minute. Like Mother 3 was probably the biggest one. It was called Earthbound 64 at the time. It was supposed to come out for the disk drive. There's like actually a good amount of footage that exists of this game online. And that one never made the jump to cartridge. It just got canceled once the 64 disk drive was basically confirmed to never come out into the United States ever. So that one's probably the saddest one because I would have loved to play Earthbound 64. We eventually did get.
Would be awesome.
We eventually did get Mother 3 as like the Game Boy Advance version with the top-down perspective, but I really would have liked to see what they would have done with like a 3D version of that. Like you can take a look at the maps from Earthbound 64 and translate them to the Mother 3 maps.
That's pretty sick.
And they're like pretty one-to-one.
Yeah.
Like you can take moments from each of those games and be like, oh, that's this moment from the game. Got it. So that was super cool. But yeah, it came out in 1999. It was done using a very strange distribution method where you would buy it and then you would also kind of be forced into a subscription service with RandNet.
They were ahead of their time.
Yeah, which was an internet subscription service that you could use to presumably play online games at some point. That never really happened.
Supposedly, yeah.
But it came with a RandNet disc where you could access the internet, and there would be multiple different games where you could like save and share other things with people online. So that kind of came like as part of the Nintendo 64 disk drive experience. It was trying to push online, which might be one of the reasons why the GameCube just never really touched online, is because they kind of got burned really bad with the 64 disk drive.
Yeah, with the 64 disk drive, yep.
So yeah, this is a very, very strange release. Only about, I believe it was 20,000-ish of these, 15,000 of these came out. And never left Japan. only 10 games ever came out for them. One of them was the RanNet startup disc.
Dang it.
So there's very, very few games that came out for this. And, also, 4 of them are all Mario Artist games. So,
okay. Cool.
You have, as far as, like, real games, only about, like, 4 or 5 real games, aside from the Mario Artist games. So, yeah. It's very interesting actually owning one of these things, because there's a lot of things about it that nobody really tells you. So, the 64 disk drive, believe it or not, can work on US consoles. That's sick. Because, believe it or not, a US N64 and a Japanese N64 are basically the same internally. The only thing that prevents one of the cartridges from working in the other is there's like a physical tray that exists within the cartridge slot that's like has different pins. So if you look at a Japanese cartridge versus an American cartridge, they're shaped slightly differently to account for those pins. So if you just 3D print like a new tray that doesn't have those pin lockouts, you just fit a Japanese cartridge straight into an American console, which is what I did. I didn't 3D print it myself. I just got it off of Etsy for like $5, put it in, and bada bing, bada boom, suddenly it's region free, at least as far as Japanese games go.
That's
PAL
pretty
games,
sick.
Yeah, PAL games are still their own thing, but Japanese games can boot just fine. So
It's pretty good.
yeah, the fact that it's region free is quite nice. However, there is a bit of a problem with this. So one thing that the Nintendo 64 disk drive was meant to do was to kind of like, so say, let's take again F-Zero X, the expansion kit. All right, this is a very cool release. This is basically DLC for F-Zero X.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why I
way
wanted
before
this,
its time.
yeah, this is the biggest reason why I wanted this, is because this gives you the track editor, which is basically the exact same developer tools that the developers use to make the game. It gives you a car editor. It gives you a ton of new tracks. It gives you a basically roguelike cup. It will randomly generate tracks for you.
That's awesome.
And the tracks are really funny because sometimes they can be a little bit simple, but at other times, half of the racers will just fall off and crash at like one curve that was poorly placed. Like, it's hilarious to watch. So you never know what you're going to get with that. Like, there's a ton of fun stuff in here. All the music tracks got put into stereo. They got good stereo mixes. They added a awesome remix of Rainbow Road in this game. If you haven't listened to it, you can just go listen to it on YouTube. It's probably the best version of Rainbow Road that I've heard. So tons of awesome fun stuff in this, but you need the original game for this to work. So you put the original F-Zero X, Japanese only, and then put this version of, not this version, but just this disc in, and then suddenly you now have what is considered the full experience of F-Zero X with all of the DLC, more or less. So a lot of games were actually planned to do this, which causes actually a few problems. So if you put a North American F-Zero X in, it just won't boot if you have an N64 disk drive attached.
Because it's like looking for the
Because
expansion.
it's looking for it. It's looking for those hooks. And because it's not the right region, it just refuses to boot. But some other games that were meant to have this. Have you ever heard of Zelda?
Yes, I have. I own it on the GameCube, in fact.
Exactly. So Master Quest was originally going to be a slightly more in-depth like expansion for Ocarina of Time called Zelda, which was supposed to be an N64 disk drive disc that you put in, and it would remix dungeons and then possibly do more stuff. The stories kind of go back and forth.
Theoretically, have more enemy types or that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So we know that that was a thing that was going to exist. We have Master Quest now. Miyamoto talked about this a ton back in the day. We know that this was a thing. If you put Ocarina of Time in, it won't boot if you have the 64 disk drive attached, because it's also looking for those hooks. So if I want to play Ocarina of Time now, I have to detach the N64 disk drive, which is a little bit of a pain. Like, this happens with a few games. Those are probably the two most notable ones, but like Mario Party 1 also has this issue. have you ever played Mario Party 2 and thought, half of these mini games are exactly the same as Mario Party 1? That's because Mario Party 2, this is all speculation, but the fact that Mario Party does not boot if you have a 64 disk drive attached means that it was supposed to have an expansion for it. So all of these mini games were presumably designed to be an expansion for Mario Party 1 instead of a standalone release. But once the disk drive was gonna not come out, they just moved it to a full-on cartridge release. And they also, I believe, chose to do that because they didn't want like the spinning the control stick mini game in the game anymore if they could help it. So yeah, it's weird. Games randomly don't boot because they're
Very
looking
strange,
for something that never existed, but was programmed in there from the start because Nintendo thought that it would eventually exist. It just never ended up happening.
Just never ended up happening. It's like the weird thing too about like Zelda and similar is like it was actually canceled pretty close to when it would be done, but it had been like delayed and stuff so much. But by then the 64DD was pretty much a flop. They canceled it. And in the big files leak that happened with Nintendo a while ago, there was like enough around from Zelda that people were pretty much able to confirm, oh yeah, this was just Master Quest with maybe a little bit extra.
Yeah.
Because for a while there was a lot of speculation of like, oh, this was going to be a whole extra adventure on Ocarina of Time. But
yeah, I'm pretty sure that was like how it started. And then eventually just got pared down to that.
Yep.
It would have been very fun if they did. I know there was like an interview with Miyamoto at one time where they were saying that they were trying to do like randomized dungeons.
Yep.
Similar to how there's randomized tracks in F-Zero X. And I think the disk drive would have been a perfect way to be able to accomplish that. It does a lot of things that like it has an internal clock. Mm-hmm. So like Animal Crossing or Animal Forest in Japan was originally supposed to come out for the disk drive as well because it had an internal clock. It was going to make use of that.
Yep.
But instead, it got moved to the N64, just had a battery put inside the cartridge itself, and got delayed to the GameCube, which also has an internal clock battery, as a better home for it.
What do you know about Zelda Gaiden?
That's Majora's Mask.
Yes, but it was originally also planned as a 64DD expansion for Ocarina of Time.
Yes, so
those then eventually got turned into a game.
Yeah, those kind of got splits because the designer of the dungeons was like, "I just want to make new dungeons, bro. I just want to make new stuff,
please.
Like, just let me make a new game."
Yep.
And so, yeah, Majora's Mask got made in like a year, which is crazy.
Yep. All right, we're running short on time. Is the 64DD, is it worth it?
No. There's like no games for it. And boy, I love playing F-Zero X on this thing, but it is not worth the cost. Like, not even close. If it was like $200 or something, yeah,
it'd be
maybe.
like cool to have. And you were really into the N64 and really liked F-Zero or Mario Paint or, you know.
Yeah, so no, don't buy one. You have to remove it half the time anyway if you want to play good games like Mario Party or Ocarina of Time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, no, don't buy one.
Noted.
I don't want to sell mine, though, to be clear. Like, when we talked about CRTs, I was like, I probably want to get rid of my PVM because it's just, like, burning a hole in my wallet. I'm not using it for anything. I do legitimately actually, like, get use out of this. So.
Speaking of Grails that I don't get much use out of.
This is somehow the biggest one of all. Like, we've talked about some heavy hitters here, Cal.
Yes.
And you're about to blow them all away?
Boy, do I have a niche heavy hitter here.
Well, what is our audience coming for, if not very niche, probably GameCube-related heavy hitters? It is GameCube-related, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
My technical number one Grail, my rarest item I own, is a Heineken GameCube. What is a Heineken GameCube? I would show it to you right now, but I can't. I'll get to that in a minute. Simply put, it's a fairly normal looking black GameCube, or a purple GameCube, but mine is black, that has Heineken screen printed excellently well. It's very hard to reproduce, onto the jewel. And this black GameCube also has a known verifiable serial number.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So they're serialized.
Yes. Yeah, all GameCubes are serialized.
Oh, well, true.
Yeah. But yes, the range of serialized numbers for the Heineken GameCubes has been largely figured out, and therefore
Understood.
it is... Because whenever I've discussed it in, like, GameCube spaces or, like, retro video game collector spaces, there's always been a lot of, like, that Heineken label is so easily faked, it's just printed on top of the jewel. Well, no. Verifiable serial number.
Yeah. But it is just a jewel, right?
Yes, it is just it's a jewel that says Heineken on it.
Is there anything else?
On top of a black GameCube.
Is there anything else cool?
That's it. Well, what's cool about it is that there's 50 black ones and 50 purple ones. They were given away as part of a magazine giveaway that was run by Heineken.
There's 100 total. 50.
There is 100 total Heineken
made.
GameCubes out there. Maximum.
Wow.
Supposedly 100 maximum. Because that is what the magazine ad said. There was 100 grand prize winners. And then the assumption is also made that since there is purple and black and like the way the serial numbers have worked out, it's assumed there's 50 black and 50 purple.
Do we know how many like are accounted for? Like, is there a registry of these things?
No, not that I'm aware of. That could be a hold up. The caginess of high-end collectors to talk about these kind of things because it protects the values of their own collection is something we could definitely talk about sometime.
Yeah. Dumb. Transparency, good. Collectors, talk about your stuff, please.
I would agree with you. But yes, there are only 100 of them, and it's extremely niche. Like, it's very easy to communicate to someone why a Panasonic Q is cool. A lot of people get that the GameCube that's also a DVD player that's stainless steel and LED light up blue and chrome is cool in its own way, right?
It looks different. A Heineken GameCube doesn't really look all that different.
No, it is a black GameCube that says Heineken on the top. It is technically extremely rare. I personally find it very cool because it's like one of 5 kind of like unobtainium level GameCubes that do exist, along with 4 other giveaways. That were run by MTV. The MTV GameCubes are awesome. But yeah, it's just and these are, like I said, the value on these things is really hard to evaluate. I've seen them go for like as much as $3,000. I've seen them go for as low as $1,500. The reason for this is that, like I said, it's real niche. It's not cool in any traditional sense. Even a lot of the other special edition GameCubes or stuff like the 64DD or, like Panzer Dragoon Saga, those are cool in a way in addition to their rarity, 64DD, cool product concept, it flopped. And it has some intrigue. It's for a very popular console. It's an accessory. Cool. Panzer Dragoon Saga happened to be a flop game for a bit of a failed console, but it itself is a very good game that happens to be rare and easy to lose one or more of the discs of. The Heineken GameCube, it is rare, and that's it. That's all it has going for it.
It's not just the fact that it's rare. It's incredibly, extremely rare. Like with these other things that we were talking about.
Correct.
Like with Panzer Dragoon Saga and the N64DD. Those are in the tens of thousands. Like anywhere between 10 to 20,000 of those exist.
And like the Heineken GameCube, we don't know how many, but they've said like under 100,000. So like there's we're in the tens of these out there at least.
Yeah. Of your black one that exists, there are under 50 of them. Correct. That exist in the world.
Yes. Which is insanely rare and insanely cool in that one way. But yeah, like of the theoretical 100 claimed to be given away, we're not sure how many are actually out there. We're not sure if they were all claimed. Mine, funny story, how I got mine was like woman found this in her like the closet of her dead chain smoking father-in-law.
Whoa.
And it was just like he had like probably one of those people who like obsessively entered magazine giveaways or something and like won it and shoved it in a closet.
Wow.
And it's like verifiable real. Like I'm the second owner of this thing. and it has some smoke damage on the stickers, and it smelled bad for a while. But I will take a smoke damaged Heineken GameCube over no Heineken GameCube if I say so myself.
Absolutely. Heineken is a very strange like collaboration with Nintendo too.
Exactly.
It's not something you'd expect.
No, and the original advertisement for it, I have a little high quality printout of the original magazine ad around. I need to refind it. I was planning on like framing it and stuff with the GameCube, but like the picture is like a GameCube controller with like 2 Heineken bottles taped to the handles.
That's so weird.
It's so strange. Beer, GameCube, fake, made up.
Yeah. I mean, this feels like something that would be something that like is a product placement for like the original Xbox or something like that.
Yes, exactly.
But with the GameCube's like family
PS2.
friendly. Yeah,
Yes.
I guess PS2 as well. But with the GameCube's family friendly like marketing and everything like that, I guess Nintendo was trying to like shake that. It was like
a little
kids,
bit,
and see what else they could do about that. But the way to do that is maybe make your console not look like a purple lunchbox in the first place. Thoughts?
We have a whole episode about that one. So, yeah, I'm like theoretically the second owner of this thing. It literally came out of a closet from some lady who had no clue what she had until she was notified of what she had.
But she was notified of what she had. Like, nobody took advantage of her.
She was notified of what she had. I like theoretically paid her lower than what she could have got, but she wanted a quick sale. So I gave her a quick, reasonable sale number. I bought mine for 12.
Yeah, as long as she knows what she has. Like, that is one thing that is a very hard line to walk in the collecting space, is that you want to get good deals on things, but it's also kind of morally not the greatest to take advantage of people.
Yep.
So usually, at least for me, and it seems like you do the same kind of thing.
I try to keep it fair.
Try to keep it at least fair. Hopefully, usually what ends up happening is you can get it for less than what market is. They also make a good quick buck off of whatever it is that they're selling. You just don't want to make it so that you get something awesome at the expense of somebody else.
Yep. Exactly. So that's my journey of how I got it. And now we come around to the question, which combined with your 64DD, I think kind of opens another thing. Is this worth it?
Last question before you say, is it worth it?
Yes.
Is it a DOL 001 or DOL 101?
It is a DOL 001.
So
it at least has that going for it. It has the digital out on it.
Great. So you can put component cables in.
Yeah.
Great.
I have played games on it before. Just like
awesome.
it was my before I had the Cube, which I usually use as my daily driver now. It was my daily driver up here in the office for a bit.
You use your Heineken GameCube as your daily driver?
Yeah, it's a GameCube.
Oh my gosh, Cal.
Well, and two, like,
it's
the optical drive doesn't have a serial number on it. Chunk.
Very true. I mean, at the end of the day, these things all were just meant to be used. They were meant to be played.
Exactly.
So just having them sit on a shelf and that never happening.
Yep.
Is a little bit of it feels bad. Might as well at least like give it a little bit of use, give it a little bit of love. Legit, with this collecting thing, I always get reminded of like Toy Story 2, where they're like, you are a toy.
Yeah, exactly. I like to use my stuff.
Yeah.
It's fun.
It's fun to use and fun to collect.
The only GameCube that I own that I have not played games on semi-extensively is my dev console. And that's only because I can't bring myself to break the Nintendo sticker on it.
Yeah.
Because the disc drive inside of it does not play real GameCube games. It plays dev discs. It cannot play production discs. But it's a GameCube, so if I really wanted to, I could open it up and put a real optical drive in there, but I don't want to do that.
Yeah,
it still has the Nintendo, like, it still has the Nintendo tamper sticker on it.
Yeah, so I think you're doing the right thing with that.
I would agree with you.
Yeah. So I guess the question is, yes, is it worth it for one of these, like, checks list? How much do these things go for?
So that's part of it too. It is so niche. It is obviously very rare. It's very cool because it is so rare. It is so niche. The value is hard to evaluate. Like, I bought mine for 12.
Mm-hmm.
I could probably sell it again right now for 12. Theoretically, it's worth more than that. They do sell for more than that, but it's like so niche. even within like GameCubes, which is a growing collector space, it's missing the cool factor, and it's so niche, and it's so rare, and so theoretically valuable, while also having zero cool factor besides rarity.
Yeah, it's hard to put a price on.
Yes. And like probably 0 to 1 of these sells per year. Like me buying a Heineken GameCube is the second Heineken GameCube sale that I'm aware of in the last 4 years.
Wow. So Cal,
the guy who owns consolevariations.com sold one of his 2 and would not be public about the sales price of it, which go back to what I said earlier. Yes.
So why don't you have it with you?
I do not have it with me right now because it is currently on consignment at my local game store.
Whoa. So what do you mean by consignment?
By consignment, so I went through a very long, protracted. I have been active online about wanting to sell my Heineken GameCube for a specific price. Because I can talk about this in a second, but it's like, it's really cool. It's really rare, but it's like niche, and it's like so niche and kind of does lack that cool factor, such that I would rather have the money than have a Heineken GameCube.
Yeah,
and it's like boring as that is.
It now you can say
and
that
I've had it. I've owned it. I can say that I have a GameCube collector owned a Heineken GameCube for 2 years. Right, that is something I can say that I have done. I've owned it for over 2 years now. Holy cow!
That is one great thing about the collector's market, is that you don't have to sit on your stuff forever. Like, you don't have to be a hoarder. You can if you want to. Like, no judgment, no problems there. But if there's something that is not actively bringing you joy, dump it. Get rid of it. Let it bring somebody else joy.
Exactly. I fully agree with that. But it's just too niche for me. So I worked out like basically like I tried to sell it through my own channels online, was not very successful within like, I don't know, I didn't wait a super long time, but I said, okay. And so then I went to my local video game store here in Columbus, which is a pretty good shop, and they like travel around to some conventions and stuff, as a lot of these shops do. And so I said, hey, do you want to buy this? And we went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth about it. And he basically said, I can't buy this. It's pretty niche. It's obviously very cool. It's like awesome. It's extremely rare. But I can't, like, I can't. The classic like line they ran out on Pawn Stars all the time. Like, this is really cool. It's extremely valuable, but it's like so valuable and so cool, but so niche that I don't know when I'm going to be able to sell it and get my X money back. So we worked out a consignment deal. It's sitting in his shop. He takes it to cons. And then if he sells it for the number that I get to dictate, he gets X% and I get money. Which that, for now, that works for me. So I kind of don't want to own it anymore. I mean, like, I'm happy to own it, but I would rather have the money.
Yeah.
And I would rather him have it and take it to cons and stuff and kind of do the selling work for me than it just sit as a fancy Zoom background piece that nobody gets for me.
Yeah,
so
that's a neat way to like get it in front of people as well, because I know if it were me, I would just like throw it on eBay and sit on it, and then be like, maybe like, at some point
sit it at the number that I want, and if someone buys it, they buy it.
Yep. I like that a lot.
So that's exactly. So in this I think opens up what could be a really big conversation, but I think today will be perhaps more of a couple statements. In the collecting world, especially when it comes to Grails, I think it is important for you to set realistic goals on what your upper limit is going to be, and like aim towards achieving those goals. Like, you want to own a disk drive. That's a pretty bougie one. You want to own a Panasonic Q. That's a pretty bougie one. You would like to own all of the first party Nintendo GameCube games. Very achievable. You would like to own all of the production color GameCube games. Very achievable. But if you can like find that upper limit for you, it can like kind of make collecting a much more gratifying experience, because you're not just like mindlessly consuming everything you can. You have goals that you're aiming for. You're operating within constraints, and that in its own way can bring a lot of joy. I have found my upper limit on the GameCube collecting, and it is somewhere below a Heineken and above, it is somewhere below owning the Heineken GameCube and above already owning almost 100 games and owning 10 different consoles. So we'll find what the specifics are, but now I know the ceiling. I know my ceiling is below a 1 in 50, not very cool cube.
Yeah. And one thing that is also, like, we are talking about, like, very upper echelon rare stuff.
The Grails we talked about today are obnoxious. If I didn't have a Panasonic Cube, my Grail would be like Chibi Robo, a $200 GameCube game that I happen to have had since I was a child.
Yeah, it can be Pokemon Coliseum, like if that's your favorite game from when you were a child and then you want to work up to gaining that, that is a great goal to have. Just set these goals, set these expectations. And one thing that you should also definitely be aware of when trying to figure out these goals, it's something that not a lot of people like to talk about, but it's finances, right? Like, we were both lucky enough to be in good enough financial states to be able to make these large purchases, either because we were just doing fine at the time, or these were things that we were saving up for, things that we had in mind for some time. The worst thing that you can possibly do is say, oh, I want this $1,000 game, without having planned for it, and pull the trigger immediately.
Yep.
Don't do that. Go in with a plan. Try to figure out your financial situations. See if you can make something like that work. Save up. Just have a plan for whatever it is. It doesn't really matter what that plan is, as long as you are able to do it within your financial means. And that's just like not a very fun thing to talk about when it comes to collecting, but it's a very real thing that a lot of people run into.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree. So that's every single thing about collecting our Grails. That's everything about the Grails we currently have.
That is everything about the Grails that we currently have. So, Cal, we are going to move into the one recurring segment that we have, which is recent pickups. I do have one.
Murph, I was about to say, my contribution to this section is real small. I have picked up nothing in the last 2 weeks.
That's awesome.
So that is my recent pickup. My recent pickup is that I saved some money.
That's absolutely amazing.
Yep.
So my recent pickup was actually, it was a few weeks ago now, but I went to the Southern California Gaming Expo and picked up some games there. So that was what I shared on the last episode. But what I picked up right before that is actually very, very related to this episode. It is Doshin the Giant.
Oh, yeah.
You're looking at the video version. This is the most unhelpful cover you have ever seen.
Yep.
Like, it doesn't tell you anything about it. It's just a bunch of symbols. And if you look at the back, it also doesn't tell you anything about it. It has pictures of kittens. This is not what the game is like. Like, what the heck? Anyway, so the only game that I had owned for the Nintendo 64 disc drive was F-Zero X expansion kit for the longest time. Again, because there's just not much of a selection. Like, there's not much to the library. It doesn't go very deep. So I was looking for another game to get. Eventually I'll collect the Mario Artist stuff, but that's mostly just to have it, not necessarily to play it, which again, not my favorite, so those usually get pushed on the back burner. But Doshin the Giant was one that had kind of always intrigued me, because if you've ever played Super Smash Bros. Melee, he's in there as a trophy. And this is one that, again, like Cal, from a GameCube collecting perspective, what do you know about Doshin the Giant?
Nothing. I know it's a big yellow guy.
It's a big yellow guy. Well, the reason I asked
I have seen the character.
Yeah, the reason I asked that is because this is actually also a game that got ported to the GameCube. Very similar to how Animal Crossing got ported from the N64 to the GameCube for a wider release. But it got ported to the GameCube only in Japanese and PAL regions. Never got released in North America. Instead, we got Cubivore. So is Doshin better than Cubivore? Heck if I know.
You know, I'm gonna guess that if like Doshin is a remotely decent game, yes, because Cubivore is like intriguing but not good.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that might be how I discuss Doshin as well. Like, It is very intriguing, but it's very slow paced. So the whole premise of Doshin the Giant is that you are Doshin the Giant. So you're this big guy. You wash up on shore / walk to shore, and then there's a bunch of villagers and stuff around that are very excited to see you, and they'll ask for things. They'll be like, "Hey, can you get a plant? Bring it here." So you go pick up a plant somewhere, bring it there. They all get happy, and then the screen fills up with hearts. They're like, "Oh, we want to build something here. Can you terraform this part of the islands to make it a little bit flatter or raise some stuff up a little bit?" And Doshin has the powers to do that. So he does that, and then they all get happy. Hearts form and stuff. And then when you collect enough hearts, they form all the way around a circle. Then you grow, and then you get bigger. And then you can do more and more stuff for the villagers. But it also becomes a little bit more unwieldy for you to do stuff. However, one thing you also can do is just hurt the villagers. Like, it is your island to be able to control however you want. So if you want to go smash everything up, you can press a button and you turn to Jashin the Giant, which is a big red dude with wings. And your terraforming abilities and picking stuff up turns into like smashing things around. You can walk over all the villagers and murder them, and you get like all these skulls. And then if you get enough skulls around, then Jashin grows. So it kind of like I think the category is called God Simulator, because you can just kind of do whatever you want. You can help these people out. They can build monuments to you because they love you. Or you can hurt these people and they'll build monuments to you because they fear you. So it's a very weird game. It's very slow paced. It's more of a like rest and relaxation kind of game.
Yeah.
I've been working on playing it a little bit because it does have a good amount of Japanese in it. But like when the villagers tell you, "Hey, we want this," they have a picture of a plant. That's how you know that they want a plant, and it shows you where to put it. They don't like physically ask you to go get a plant. So when it comes to menus and stuff, I'll like have the text box bring up like Google Translate on my phone.
Yeah, and have to check it out.
And check it out, see what it is, as well as like looking up some guides and stuff. So it's a decent game. Probably one of the better ones on the Nintendo 64 disk drive, but not the greatest game in the world, but very intriguing. Very, I wouldn't say cool, but weird. It's very Japanese, if that makes sense.
Yeah. That's all very fair. Sounds fun to me.
Yeah. So now I own a grand total of 2 64 disk drive games. And we'll probably eventually get more, but that is not high on the list.
It's very fair. I mean, yeah, you're pretty much out of stuff to get for it, right?
There's like a golf game. There's like SimCity 64, which is pretty good, but it's very text heavy. And it's all in Japanese.
Yep.
So that would involve like a pretty steep learning curve. And I don't really play SimCity.
Very tough to do. Yeah.
Much anyway. So, yeah.
Yep. Well, I think that's all we have for this episode, Murph.
Yep. Thanks for listening in, and we'll see you in the next one. Happy gaming.
Happy gaming.